Okay. Now that I know how to do that, I'm going to start doing that in the mornings. Okay. So, um, we have Brent here. I don't know where he is on your screen, but he's over here for me. So I can say we have Brent here from Silverline, which all you guys know. And we thought that it would be a good idea to kind of have a touch point with the market and what's going on right now. We had craziness, right? January, February, March, most of April. Still some, I guess it depends on your price point and your buyer's finance situation. But we're also seeing some changes. Oh, here's Matt. You missed it. I figured out how to turn the music on and we were boogieing to the Commodores. Anyway, and then also just kind of talking about what your customer's experience is going to look like as a buyer when they're dealing with a lender. So in going through that process, you guys should be able to at least have some confidence when you're prepping your client to let them know what they might be able to expect, right? It's just another little thing that makes you more of an expert, knowing just enough to make you dangerous and when to punt it over to your lender, which we hope is Brent or whoever it is that you choose to use. So let me just ask a question just to kind of survey the room and your guys' experience. How do you guys feel like the market is today on June 10th versus, let's say, March 10th? Any thoughts? Is it the same? Do you guys think it's changed? What are you guys seeing on the ground?
I'm seeing homes come to the market a little bit more frequently, at least in my buyer's price range. So I'd consider that a good thing.
Yep, inventory.
I think there's a little more inventory.
I would agree.
Seeing the
What
same
else?
thing for buyers, but also seems to be, I don't want to say a softening, but I'm seeing price reductions, whereas you never saw price reductions before.
Okay, so perhaps, I don't want to say it's listing agents, it could be listing agents, or at least the sellers wanted to test the market, you know, and see if they could up their price given the environment that we were seeing, and now maybe it's not really floating. Is that what you would say?
That could be, I mean, that could be part of it.
What else do you think it is, maybe?
I think it's, again, a number of factors. And one is, we discussed previously, again, how sellers are trying to grab for all they can, understandably so, right? I mean, you like to make the most money if you can. But also I think it's the fact that others are coming on the market. And so that impacts the sellers that are out there. And so I think it's just like everything else, it's just a combination of things. I don't think it's one thing in particular. I just think it's a combination of things.
I would agree that there's a direct correlation between an increase in inventory and then there's increased competition, right? Because increased prices is a supply and demand issue. So when you have higher supply, demand goes down. So yeah, that makes sense. Anything else, everybody?
I just read an article this morning that was just about that a lot of people that aren't in real estate think this is heading toward the same place we were in like 2006, and kind of why it's different in that it's mainly because of the supply and the demand, not because of loans that are being propped up, and
Correct.
it's harder to get mortgages and whatnot now, so that it's looks the same to people that don't know what's going on. But it was just interesting to explain that to buyers that might be leery.
So there's public perception that we're in some kind of bubble.
Yeah,
and it's all going to crash.
Interest rates are creeping up a little bit, but still, you know, low and nowhere near where they were then.
I'm
Sorry, let me.
chime
I'm
in.
gonna.
I was at a closing. I've never seen so much cash in the market. There is. I just had a buyer accepted 759 all cash, and they, you know, if someone's buying all cash, doesn't mean that they're overpaying for the home. They still could be, but if things were challenging for them, they're going to be able to sell that home. They're not going to be away with it, right?
حبيبي راني
Oh, hey, safe.
والله تمام انت شلونك؟
And, you know, even the people that are paying all cash, you know, besides the first time buyers and, you know, the 3.5 conventional or FHA, they're putting considerable amount of money. I mean, most recent listings I had that had multiple offers on them had.
Hey, can you mute yourself, please?
Do you have the ability to do that?
Yes, you guys have the ability to mute them.
Safe. Safe, mute yourself.
I was on mute. That's why you couldn't hear me because of you.
But there were multiple offers and they had a lot of heavy down payment. Okay.
It's not letting me. Who was the first one in? Brent, you were the first one.
ماشي حبيبي عن ممنون حبيبي hello راي
Oh, I muted. Brent, will it let you?
No, it won't.
It won't let me either. That's weird. Okay. Hey, Safe, can you hear us?
yes.
Safe.
Can you mute yourself, please?
Yes.
Mute yourself.
Please, please.
It's like the third time I've yelled at my
I
kid.
know.
All right. So anyways,
All
Off
right,
track.
So increase in inventory, which is leading to some price reductions potentially. Public perception, maybe some buyers are pulling back because they think we're, at some kind of a peak or a bubble. A lot of cash in the market, we're seeing that we haven't seen in the past. Anything else in the last 2 months that you guys are noticing? How's the situation with
No, you're on mute.
With what? How's the situation with what?
Sorry. And Matt was on mute too, so you can hear the one through either mic. What do you feel like the situation is as far as the number of other offers that you're competing with? Like, are you up against 20 other offers, or do you think you're up against 4 or 5, or do you know? Is anybody sharing it with you? What do you think?
what about you
That was
guys?
the thing Sharon and I talked about this morning is I noticed my last 2 accepted offers. It's competitive and they were quick. Like the house had just hit the market and, my client put an offer in within the first 24 hours, but they were only up against 2 offers in one case and one other offer. And both of those were one was in a $300K price point. The other one was about $540. So competitive, but less competitive than what we saw in March and April, for sure.
And part of that is also going to be directly related to an increase in inventory, right? More houses for people to spread out.
For the first time in a while, I've seen some price improvements. I follow my farm area pretty closely, just to know what's going on at all times. And there's a couple of people that listed, and then I'm like, scratching my head because I know the comps in that neighborhood, and I'm like, they're pushing the limit a little bit. And then someone sees that, and then they list a little higher, and then they sit, and then before you know it, you got a price improvement, 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, right? And they'll sell eventually, but that's the cardinal sin right now from a list side is the price it too high. I am still a very firm believer. Price it at or below market, the market will speak, right? Or perhaps
John brought that up earlier.
or perhaps it won't, right? If you price it right and you only get one offer, sorry, you're not going to get 20 offers. Bird in hand, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I had a thought earlier. I'm not going to act on it, but a thought I had is because one thing we can show our sellers if we think the price is too high once it does hit the market. If they have competing homes that are very similar, take a screenshot of the showing block for the other home and take a screenshot of the showing blocks for their home. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the more information you can share, the better value your it's not your gut, guys. It's never I think that we are priced too high. It's I feel as if we are priced too high based on this, and this, right? And I think that's providing, the proper service, because everything we talk about can be backed up with facts. And Denny Grimes had said a couple months ago in our thing, there's only 2 reasons for why a house doesn't sell. Either the agent's not talking or the seller's not listening. Make sure that you are the one talking. You are the agent communicating, right? That's on the list side.
Yeah. And well, one other thing that came to mind with what you mentioned earlier of sellers testing out the market, and now they're starting to see what the limits are. I think a really important thing between now and March is that's about 60 days. The market works in 30 to 90 day cycles. So 60 days, that's right in the middle. And a lot of those offers that were getting accepted, a month or 2 ago that were too good to be true, even with an appraisal guarantee, a lot of, at least in the price range my buyers are looking at, most people who are looking for, $100,000, $120,000 home, they can only cover maybe $5,000 to $10,000 in appraisal guarantee. And if you do 20 or 30,000 over asking, it might appraise for, less than 5 or 10,000, under what you offer. And so even with the guarantee, you're still not anywhere close to what the sellers were getting. And actually something that happened this morning, and I've seen similar stuff happen with other homes that we almost moved forward with. But I just got a call from a listing agent. We put an offer in on about a little over a month ago, and they said it was second best offer they got, and they kept it as a backup offer. They just called us and told us that their last offer fell through because of financing. I'm not sure if it's because of the appraisal guarantee or just something else happened with the buyer. I got to talk it through with the agent, but I've been hearing similar things from other sellers agents. And
yeah. So Brent, why don't you and I were talking about that this morning too. Tell us what the appraisal picture has looked like from your desk.
Yeah, probably April. I ran a training on our Friday training session where we were talking a little bit about how to mend the appraisal gap and creative options, how to hold those deals together and restructure them, renegotiate. The option of working with someone like myself, who's a full service broker versus a lender, and having the opportunity to order a second appraisal in order to save that deal. On average, I would say probably 1 out of 15 of my appraisals, not mine, but just my company's, what I'm most close to, 1 out of 15 will come in below the price that's on a purchase agreement. In April, that number was almost triple. It was about 3 out of every 15. And, coming full circle, entering June, we're probably back to a more steady 1 out of every 12 to 15. So we're seeing less of an appraisal gap because now we've got comparables out there. So less restructuring, less wild west type offers. And there's also, you couple that with inventory, and then there's this thing called the HPSI. This is a survey that Fannie Mae creates. It's called HPSI, Home Purchase Sentiment Index. And really what it does is it measures consumers' emotions randomly throughout the country. It is measuring who feels, the question's simple, do you feel like right now is a great time to buy real estate? And for the first time ever in April, that index, since it came out a few years ago, fell below 50%, where 50% of people, it was 48, 49% of people in America feel like now is a great time to buy real estate. That number is now fallen to 35. So you've got higher inventory, less buyers. So that's probably why we're seeing some things start to steady out. And that also, like, that triggers a light bulb, and it tells me like how important it is my job. Like, if that's how if only 1 out of 3 Americans feel like now is a good time to buy, I'm looking at my pipeline, like, those are American people. Like, 1 out of 3 of them is probably feeling still confident. So it's my job as a salesperson and as an industry expert to keep them engaged in the market, to keep them up to speed with the things that we're talking about, and to be the catalyst of positive energy and positive thinking. And framing things in a way that do show them the possibilities. Because I still think it's a great time to buy. I think
You guys-
let's talk about that.
You guys, never assume that the people that you know that you're in your sphere or that are in your database are getting the facts on what's going on out there, right? If you're not telling the story, someone else is going to tell the story for you. So I have a friend, she's going to be on the panel in a couple weeks for this real estate E2P panel. She just did a kind of a Facebook reel yesterday or Instagram story, and she was just kind of talking about a few of the buyers she had recently gotten under contract, and her message in that was, it's not as crazy, it's not as scary as people are making it out to be. She said, we had a good plan. We sat down. I explained to them the process. We went in. We didn't win the first house, but the second, they didn't have to pay $100,000 over ask. We got a great house at a good price and we're moving forward. We didn't waive inspection. Like, she was telling a story for these buyers. And again, I think it's very important for you guys to do the same, because when people are hearing what's going on, I just read an article, right? $1 million over ask some house in like DC. Well, DC is not Michigan, right? Like, there, $10,000 it's all relative. So when people are reading and looking and watching TV and hearing these stories, they maybe completely just think it's that same way everywhere. And you need to be the voice of reason to be able to, calm them down a little bit and explain what's going on here.
So Brent, let's do like a quickie little kind of role play type of thing. So before we start, what I'm hearing from what you just said, and to put it into like marching order terms for everybody on the call, things aren't as crazy as they were a couple months ago, right? And we see that as evidenced in this index, which I think is a really cool piece of information I didn't know about, right? So if you're talking to a buyer, if these guys are talking to a buyer who fall into that 60% who don't think it's a great time to buy, how do we have that conversation with them to let them know that it is a good time for them, right? How do we bring them back in to the fold?
Well, there's a couple things. Like, interest rates are still phenomenal right now. I mean, 30-year fix is still about 2.99. And I like to look at things in terms of averages. Averages help me understand things and answer questions quickly, and you don't always have to get so specific. So a 2.99 30-year versus a 3.99 30-year, or even a 3.625 30-year like we had last spring, or even what we saw in October for a little bit. That's the same as $30,000 cash, $30,000 to $40,000 cash on the average purchase price in our area. So you don't really pay the purchase price. That's what people think they pay. What you pay is your financing multiplied by the term. You pay your monthly payment. Your house didn't cost you $250,000. It costs you $1,350 a month times 360 payments. So it actually costs more no matter how you slice it. But $1,350 times 360 payments, that's $486,000. If rates were 1% higher, for example, which they will be in the next 18 months, I'm sure. Let's just say your payment's going to be around $1,475.
So $125 a month.
Multiplied by 3. So right. Your house is going to cost you $531,000 in a higher interest rate environment.
Right.
Versus $498 at a 2.98. Like, there's a lot of reasons right now it's still a good time to buy. On top of that, there's no looming crash. There'll be stabilization. Like, what's the looming crash? Why?
Well, I don't know, Brent. Prices just keep going up and people are competing and they're paying way more and they're throwing cash all over the place. I don't want to pay that much more. I mean, I'm paying more than what a house is worth just to compete. Why would I want to do that?
Don't you think that the fact that people have cash is a good sign of strength in the economy?
That's a good answer. I like that. That's a good answer. Yes, of course, but still, I mean,
There's
I
never
feel like
been
I'm overpaying.
the USA has never been more prepared for a recession than they are right now. And that's why,
How's
even
that?
because of the amount of cash, I forgot the numbers, and so I don't want to misspeak, but it was somewhere in the 20 trillion mark of there's $20 trillion in US savings accounts or something like that. It hasn't crossed, I don't think, 10 trillion in decades. And we've never been more prepared for a recession. And that's why we haven't really seen a recession. That's why even when COVID was at its worst and why all this stuff was going on and there was all this unknown, we never really crashed and burned.
Let me ask you another question. I'm hearing this a lot from people, and I'm sure everybody is, in the news, right? All these forbearances, they're all coming to roost, and there's
No,
gonna be
they're actually
foreclosures
not.
all over the place.
They've continued to decrease every single month. Since, I mean, at one point we had 8%, 9% of mortgages were in forbearance. And now we're down to like under 3% or 3.5%.
It's important for everyone to know what forbearance.
Understand that, yeah. Why don't you explain that, Brent? So just quick and dirty.
Forbearance is taking the option to defer payments to the back end of your loan. Essentially, you're not.
It's something that
They're
a
not
lot
get
of-
out of jail free cards. It's
So last year, when people were getting furloughed, they had the option to suspend making their mortgage payment because
Yeah.
of their cash flow issues.
Or-
And hopefully
or if they
tagging
thought
it on
they
the
were-
end.
or if they thought they were going to have one, which many
Correct.
people decided to do forbearance to say, I'm just gonna, it's like just paying off the minimum on your credit card bill. I'm gonna keep that cash in my bank account and just kind of see what happens. So they took the option of forbearance because there was no penalty to do so.
yeah.
And everyone was scared. Well, these are going to be paid back. Well, many people that were doing a forbearance didn't actually hit hard times, and
Yeah.
they got caught up.
I had a client get scared by everything he saw in the news, so he opted to do forbearance for 7 months, and then he just called me and refied into a 15-year. He refied from a 30 to a 15. He took his payment up.
Right.
And
I think the danger in the forbearance thing is if you happen to be with, so there's different terms, right? The best terms would be if you suspended your payments for, let's say, 6 months, and then the bank just tacks them onto the end, right? So your mortgage just won't be paid off for 6 months later.
yeah,
But I think I know there were some horror stories with some banks whose terms were, well, at the end of that 6 month forbearance suspension period, you owe that whole chunk that you put off, right? And
Yeah,
if
you don't
didn't
have to
a
write a
job,
check
how are you
for
going to
it.
do that?
yeah.
But
Right.
those are the horror stories. Those are the things that people hear and
The
that pick
things
up
are-
steam.
Yeah, the thing that's missing from that picture, though, of people being in forbearance or even like, it's not going to necessarily lead to foreclosures
Mhm.
because the average loan to value, that's like your equity position, LTV, you might hear the term, is also at an all-time low, meaning the equity position is at an all-time high. The average
Right.
loan in America is about 73% loan to value. Last time around, and I lived it and I was in the industry when we were in 08, 09, 2010, people didn't have the average was like negative equity. Or even going into that, there were 100% financing options all over the place. You could buy an investment property for 100% financing. And that stuff hasn't been around for 13 years. Those products aren't out there. They haven't.
Brett,
So-
Brett, let me ask you this then.
We've
Okay,
got a clean garden with no weeds, is what I'm saying.
okay.
Let,
Can I talk?
I was going to just simplify something super quick, Matt, and then you can make your point, because we talked in a couple circles and I'm looking at some eyeballs that are like, what? So don't let your clients confuse the term forbearance with foreclosure. Those are two totally different things. Just because they start with the same beginning, it's not the same. And with forbearance, let's say they were suspending their payments for a certain amount of time. What Brent was saying is that because as a nation, we have more equity in our homes. If they owe a big chunk of money, you're just going to take it off the equity. They're not foreclosing their house. They're not selling out. They're not short selling. We are not going to have some big foreclosure crash. Go ahead, Matt. I
Yeah,
just want to
so
simplify that.
so exactly. So people right now, and don't get me wrong, I know that there's a lot of factors showing we're having this roaring 20s economy, but let's not forget that there are people struggling still right now. Many who are renting and facing evictions in the future, and many who have a mortgage. Now, for those people that do have a mortgage, unlike back when Brent said, where people were in a position where it was an adjusting rate and their interest rate was going up with out of control, they couldn't help it, or they were in a position where they actually owed more money than the house is worth. You need to be in the forefront of the conversations with those people that you think that are hurting or potentially facing hurt. And what I mean by that is they have a golden parachute, and that is the equity in their home. And I don't mean refinancing or getting an equity line and pulling it out. I mean, if they have a significant change in their income or their career or a factor of life, they may need to sell right now. And because Brent said, on average, people have 27% equity in their home, right? Get cash in while you can, right? And I don't know where you're going to go next, but if you're bleeding, let's suture up that wound instead of just letting it bleed out. Because if we do see a correction, which we will, it goes like this, right? They're going to be in a worse position 10 months down the line when they've depleted all their savings and still can't afford their monthly payment. So it makes sense to talk about making that change right now. Anybody who's got, I'm reading articles about people that in the past 3 years have bought too large of houses, or had a significant job change, or their property taxes went up way higher than they thought they were going to be because their agent was crappy about explaining how that works. So there are those people out there, guys. So make sure when you're having these conversations, you're asking questions. Not everyone is ready to buy. Not everyone is ready to move up. There's some people, and business-wise, that are opportunities for you to help. You just have to know all these little things to be able to talk about it.
In the restaurant industry, that's where my past client, book of business where I'm checking in, and that's where I see the most struggle going on.
Yeah.
And those guys got hit hard.
Yeah.
And they're
So-
still continuing to recover because they can't find employees to get back their businesses back on their feet.
Brent, you made another comment this morning that I thought was interesting about, agents who are steering away from buyers right now because of the past couple months
Mhm.
are giving up a bunch of potential business because of the way things are starting to shift. So let's talk about that so that, all of these great agents on this screen who've been getting beat up for the past couple
Yeah.
months
In
can start
fact,
to
I
feel
see it a
confident
lot.
again, right?
I'm surprised because I see it a lot from the more experienced agents.
Hold on. Do you guys mean basically agents saying, I don't want to work with buyers right now?
Yeah, because it's
Mhm.
just too hard.
We call that getting fat. You've eaten and eaten and eaten, and we've been in these great plentiful times. And yes, we just want to focus on, that's like going to the buffet and only eating the ribeye. And you know what? I don't need my vegetables anymore. I don't know. You got to have a balanced diet. You got to have a balanced business. And I would tell you, with keeping those relationships strong, keeping your buyers engaged, bringing this, sometimes it's just, this news and this talking about the market is just a great way to check in with them and take their temperature. I also see a lot of people deferring the pre-approval letter until the last possible minute because they're like, oh, it's so crazy. It's a crapshoot anyway. I'll just get a pre-approval right before I put the offer in. And then it's all this last minute shake and bake, and clients aren't able to get their documents. They're stressed out. Like, I got to get this. What? I didn't know you needed that. Why do you need that? What do you need that for? It's like we've forgotten to set the expectations, highlight the importance, get ahead of the game, get them pre-approved before you go out looking, things like that. So
This is a good segue.
Yeah,
You had said that you guys have a new app or kind of pre-approval process. And if we walk everybody through,
yes.
you can at least see what your client's going to see.
Yeah, and I
So
thought it would be a
again,
good,
it's an expectation thing that you can help them with.
and that's what I wrote down. I put The one thing that loan officers and a great loan officer and a great real estate agent have in common is they have really like two priorities. It's managing expectations and then exceeding them. And you've got to be able to manage expectations and then exceed them. You can't exceed expectations if you never manage them in the first place. And so I think especially when you're in a world where technology becomes a bigger part of our business, I wanted to just take a minute to get you guys a little bit more familiar with some of the technology we can share. One thing we're promoting right now is the ability to get the digital pre-approval just by texting your client a link and making it easy on them, or emailing them a link to get started. So what I thought I'd do is kind of walk everybody through like what your client would see once you send them the link, rather than just telling you to send them this link and then I'll handle the rest and then you're kind of flying blind. I want to bring you into our world a little bit and share this with you. So I'm going to put the link out here so that you have it, you can save it, and you can send it to your clients that you'd like to get pre-approved. By the way, if you share this link or our Facebook link, you guys can get entered in our contest too for the Yeti in the sweet camping chairs. So definitely save this. I'm going to do a screen share real quick. Screen number 2. So you guys can see. Can you guys see that?
We're about to. Oh.
So if you click the link, here's what your clients are going to see. They're basically, I mean, what's nice too is it's versatile. If you're referring somebody like a past client that you were just kind of checking in with your database saying, hey, I don't know if you heard rates are low, you might have more equity, we can drop your PMI. There's a refinance option right here on the same link. So your client will log in. They've got 2 nice, easy to see icons. I'm looking to buy a home. They click that. Here we go. We talk about the property types. They click single family, most popular. Primary residence. And then here they can kind of do like a self-evaluation of their credit. Not that it matters. I mean, we're going to go deep on that stuff anyway, but can you tell us, have you found a property? This means like, do you have a purchase agreement in hand or not yet? So not yet. Here's our team. So this is nice. Like when you're foreshadowing, you can say, hey, Brent Wilson's my guy or Amanda's my gal. So when you see her, just go ahead and click her picture. Or I can send you a different link later where it's like I'm the only option that comes up and we skip this. So we get this. They would go ahead and fill out like some basic information and then create their account. And what's nice about this portal is once they create it, I can have I'll call them and have a conversation and really get to know them and what some of their goals are. We talked a lot about their property and what their budget is. By the way, I just thought I'd give you guys some easy like cheats when we talk about managing expectations. Matt, if I were to say how much or what's my payment going to be on a house like this, and the home is $250,000, which seems to be the average right now in the area, would you be able to answer that question?
Roughly, but I would be hesitant to give them an exact amount, but I would direct them. I would basically say, well, your total monthly payment is based on part about 4 factors: principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. PITI, you may have heard it. The first 2, P&I, that's your principal and interest. That's going to depend on what your interest rate is that you're going to be getting, and the purchase price, obviously, and your loan amount.
Sure.
You're putting
and
down.
then that might be like a good segue. Like, hey, you know what? Have you had an opportunity? I like this question, especially because we talk so much about the importance of controlling the transaction. Instead of asking your clients the question, have you talked with a lender yet? Have you gotten pre-approved? Those are not control questions. Like if an attorney were in like a trial, an attorney would never ask that question because he doesn't know what they're going to say. Attorneys only ask questions that they already know the answers to. So what they might say is,
I might say, does your pre-approval letter you have tell you what your monthly payment will be?
right. Or has anyone gone over a monthly payment with you yet?
No, I just did an online calculator.
Right. So it gives you a better segue to transition and then say, hey, let me get you in touch with Brent from Silverline. He's going to get all your questions answered. In fact, here's a link. Why don't you start setting this up while I make a phone call to him, and I'm going to have him reach out this afternoon, see if he's available.
Hey, Brent, when we're talking about payments,
I want
obviously,
to go back to that, but yes.
yeah. So you got, obviously you guys will dig into this a little bit, be able to talk about the different loan types, the interest rate that they would potentially qualify for based on their credit. When it comes to property taxes, do you rely on them? Do you ask us? What's the best way to calculate the actual property taxes? Because we know that what the current, if they have a property in mind, what the current owner is paying isn't necessarily what they're going to pay.
So that's why when it comes to expectations, that's a great question. What I want to do is really dig deep about the area, the same way you would. Like, you want to dig deep about what areas they're looking to move to and why. Because they're going to have a very different property tax bill in Wixom, Michigan versus Birmingham, Michigan. And so I'm going to calculate based on the areas that they're leaning towards and my knowledge for those areas and the purchase price that they're looking at. When it comes down to the actual property, like now that, let's say hey, I'm going to look at this house with Sharon this weekend. Can you give me a rough idea on the numbers? Absolutely. And then I might leverage Sharon and say, hey, have you pulled the MLS yet? Do we know what the tax bill was last year? And then I'm going to calculate it pretty much down to a T. But you don't want to get too deep into like answering questions about payments and things like that. But for your own knowledge in managing expectations, it could be good for you to ask, like, hey, what's your budget from a lot of people don't know their price range because they're really payment focused. So you could say, what's a comfortable payment going to be for you? And if they say $1,000, but they're looking at $300,000 homes, that's a good opportunity for you to step in as an expert and just know that that's not mathematically possible. So I'm going to give you like some averages.
Nice.
Just so you have these kind of in the back of your mind, so you can like have your radar go off if somebody's like out of the realm of reality and trying to I'm good at what I do, but I can't defy the laws of mathematics. So $250,000 home is going to be about $1,350 a month.
So is that principal interest only?
So this is, again, we're going averages. The average client is going to escrow their taxes, and the average client right now is going to put about 5% down.
Okay.
So this is based on 5% down with taxes and insurance. And
All
again, it's
averages.
averages.
Right.
If it's Birmingham, it might be a little bit more. If it's
Right.
White Lake, Michigan, might be a little bit
It'll be less. Got it. Okay.
So
Thank you.
$1,350 kind of gives you like a baseline for a payment in a $250 range with 5% down. If they put more money down, that's the thing I want to show you. Like, down payments has a lot less effect than you might think, unless we're talking about 5% down versus 25% down. Because write this one down. 10 grand on purchase price equals $40 a month on payment. 10 grand on purchase price equals $40 a month on payment.
With current interest rates, average interest rates, the way they are.
Yeah, and even in like higher interest rates, it only goes up about $5 on, because we're talking about such a small amount of money, but 10 grand is financed is $40 a month. So that means 100 grand. Like if somebody's looking at if you know a $250,000 home is going to be about $1,350 on average.
Well, that's super important too, to know when you're talking with buyers, when they're saying, well, 5 grand, 10 grand, are you going to let a house go over, $40 a month?
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Yep, exactly.
Just to ask a quick question.
Sure.
Back to what you just said about taxes. So are you saying if we're working with somebody to say we're going to see a house, we should be referring them back to you or the lender that we're working with to answer specifics on that rather than going off of the MLS sheets?
No,
Correct.
you can do a little bit of both. What most agents will do, Sarah, is they will text me, hey, I'm taking John out to see this home. Can you run some numbers for us and shoot me a text on what the monthly would look like, given the list price?
And
And
that
then
number would include the taxes and the.
Always, as long as they're escrowing, and they'll tell me that on the pre-approval call. I'm gonna dig deep and find out, do you plan on escrowing and all
Sure.
those good things.
Awesome.
Make sure we're aligned.
And then
The other thing, Sarah,
ahead.
I would say is there are a handful of communities in our area that have crazy high taxes. Everybody else is ish, plus or minus, like, you know, in a comfortable range. If you kind of can put your finger on what those crazy ones are, once you get the first estimate from Brent, you know, you kind of know when you're going to be in a safe range. And you can go online and double check it, but
I don't want to further complicate things, but what I've done for a client who is looking at a variety of areas is actually created a little spreadsheet. And I put, if we were going to spend 250 here, 250 there, 250 there, because some of the areas that they were looking at varied, and the actual payment, or, you know, the yearly taxes varied $2,000, which on a payment was over $150. So for them, it mattered a lot. So you can never get into hot water by over. No agent, it's the worst phone call you can make. My property taxes went up. You didn't tell me. I didn't know. They're all pissed off, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's Matt.
I
That's
have
why
one of
I
those too.
also I'm very conservative on the way I operate, because again, I want to manage expectations and exceed them.
Yeah.
So a lot of agents say, well, what's their max approval? Like, truthfully, like, I don't do a true max. I will find out within about 5% of their max, because I want some wiggle room in case they have their max has like a giant tax bill. And that doesn't mean I'm going to deny them and not do it. But if you really want to know the max and you're going to go outside what I've put on the pre-approval letter, just shoot me like, hey, is this doable? Because I want to show them this house. It really fits all their needs. It's about 40 grand more. Is this going to be doable? And then I can plug in the specifics and know that we're in a safe spot. You don't want to work with a lender who's operating off the max, and then you're showing people their max the entire time, because that deal could blow up in everybody's face.
So what's this screen?
So this is a screen. This is what it looks like after a client has created their account and then uploaded everything. So this is cool. It shows like, hey, now I've got a client who has uploaded the 5 things that I had requested. And I can go into here.
Wait, while we're on this topic, can you spend just a second when you say uploaded? For those of you guys on this call that have bought a house or refinanced, you probably know the types of things that are required. Many of you may not know, and therefore aren't talking to your clients. I want you to know enough to be dangerous. So, you know, when the buyer says, well, what kind of things do I need to do? Brent, can you just kind of say, these are the basic things. They may need a lot more. It depends on their self-employed, depends on how long they've been at their job, but by a general rule of thumb, you're going to need X.
Let me see if I can, I'm screen sharing, I lose the chat function, but I'm going to give you an acronym for all pre-approvals. It's called IPAC. IPAC. Those are the things that we're going to review for the approval. Income, property type, like condo, single family, town, you know, just because we want to take into account association dues or something like that. Or the amount of down payment required varies from property type. So A is assets. What type of assets do they have direct access to? What's liquid, what's not? Do they have gift funds, a donor, an eligible donor, things like that?
Even let me Brent, let's say they've got a 401k and they're not using any money from their 401k to buy, but they have that and they have a savings account. You're going to want copies of all the assets that they have, right?
Mostly. So my job, what I want to do is I want to make the client's life, I want to get them approved, but I also want to make their life easy. So I'm not going to request blood samples and things that aren't going to help us. But now there are instances where having extra reserves or a large 401k is going to help with an iffy approval. But like if you're right on the bubble of getting approved and not having, 300,000 or even 40,000 or in a 401k, that's considered reserves. Reserves are the number of mortgage payments in terms of months. So if you've got a $2,000 mortgage payment and you've got $24,000 in your 401k, that's 12 months reserves, right? That's 12 months of reserves. That is going to add strength. So yes, we might want that from time to time.
Got it.
And
And
do
it
those
can be used.
reserves sometimes play into part of the formula of if you can get an appraisal waiver?
No,
Oh, I thought it did. Okay.
myth busted. Nope.
And what's the
it-
C?
The C is credit. We're going to go deep on their credit report, not just the score, but payment history, collections, past bankruptcies. We're going to look at everything with a magnifying glass. I wouldn't say
So-
microscope.
I'm trying to dumb things down because I've heard it all. When you say credit, Brent, you're not expecting a buyer to pull a credit report and send it to you, are you?
Nope, we're going to do that all digitally for them.
Now, next question, because people get this. Doesn't running a credit report ding my credit, Brent? I don't want you to do that yet until we found a house.
That's a valid concern, but the whole reason you have a credit score, Matt, is so that you can buy things when you need to. So if you have great credit, Matt, you're still going to have great credit after we take a look at it. If you have bad credit, it's still going to be bad. That's okay. A credit inquiry itself is going to affect the score about 3 to 5 points, and it's not going to affect your actual score until about 45 days from now anyway. So
Just don't go. There's no reason to go apply with 15 different mortgage companies.
right.
Can I ask a question on that though? Because what I've heard is buyers in this process taking so long, if they're not getting their offers accepted and whatnot, does that mean multiple credit pulls in that time?
We only have to renew the credit. That's a good question. We only have to renew the credit report once every 120 days.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
So it does give a good window of time.
I have a question too. As far as pulling credit, I've heard that once credit's pulled with one lender, it's valid for, I think, 60 days for multiple lenders.
Or you have a 45-day window to have it reviewed by multiple lenders because the bureaus do understand that you might be shopping for a mortgage. So it does, if anybody's like already gotten approved with a lender or a bank that you don't want them to work with, and then they bring that up as a reason, like they don't want to talk to me, that's how you can overcome that concern. Hey, you're actually allowed an unlimited number of inquiries, whether it's 2 or 6. That's only going to be reviewed on your credit report as one credit inquiry,
Okay.
as long as it's all done within a 45-day window.
Okay.
So going
Just
going
learn
back to
something new.
this portal, it used to be we had to get copies of it. We had to drop them off. We had to
Yeah,
scan
this
them,
is
we had to
really cool.
fax
So
them.
I actually haven't reviewed this one yet. So it's a good example. It came in, I hit this little eyeball thing and boom, we've got a pay stub. Breaks down the pay rate. This is a hourly employee getting paid bi-weekly. I know that because it's 80 hours right on the nose. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna sign off and approve that one.
So
It looks
this
good.
buyer can upload these automatic into this portal directly from their computer. So
Yeah. So we've got a bank statement here. One thing that a lot of people do on bank statements is they only send this front page and then nothing else. That is not valid. That is not enough for a pre-approval when it's bank statements. We need all pages with a full transaction history and their name, and the institution must be on the front. That one looked good. We'll go ahead.
And notice that it's 2 months of bank statements. It's not just a bank statement.
Yeah. 2 months, 60 days required.
now, Brent, I don't want to get in the weeds, but these are questions people ask. What if my bank account also has my mom on it? My mom's on my bank account, but I'm the only one buying a house.
No problem.
You want to verify any money coming into that bank that I'm claiming as my income is coming from a source of that's traceable.
We won't use the, we won't use the bank statements to verify the income, but we will use it to verify the assets. So
Got it.
the things that we look like, we obviously want to make sure they have enough money in there for what they said and for what they're putting down. But
And if
yes,
someone- and if
we
someone
also
said-
want to verify that there's no large deposits. Like if there's all of a sudden a chunk of change, like
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, I've got 20 grand, and I look in there, there's a $17,000 deposit from last month. It's a little bit of a problem unless it came from a verifiable source. A verifiable source is like, oh, that was my bonus from my employer. Cool. That's legit. Oh, that was my tax refund. Awesome. That's legit. Oh, I just moved some money from my other savings account. Awesome. We can trace that. Oh, I sold my motorcycle. Uh-oh. Did you have a bill of sale? Did you keep a bill of sale? Did you have a receipt? You need some additional documents. Okay, if you have that, cool. No, that came from my brother. My brother said he wanted to help me out because he's actually going to be my roommate. Well, that I can fix, but we need to have brother sign a gift letter as an eligible donor. Oh, that's my friend from college who's going to be living with me. We just lost the loan. Unless we put that college roommate on the loan. And he can show.
So gifts have to be from family members?
They have to be from eligible donors, which are typically, they're pretty lenient on who it can be. Like it can be, it doesn't have to be just like mom and dad. It can be grandparent, aunt, uncle, fiance. It can be brother, sister, employer even.
So what about the large influxes of cash that someone says, well, I work a cash business. It's legit, but I have a landscape company. I do a lot of side jobs. It's just cash. So it's from work. I just, put it in there.
Yeah, then if you're operating a legitimate business, you should have a legitimate bank account, and that should be deposited in your work bank and then transferred over. That we could probably, that's totally okay. But just throwing some cash, like, yeah, no, that's called mattress money.
Yes.
Is what we call it in the business. Mattress money. You can't have cash just sitting in under your mattress that you deposit.
How long can cash be sitting in your bank account before it's questioned? Or how long does it have to sit in your account?
60 days. 60 days seasoning.
So mattress money is okay if it's been in there for 60 days.
We no longer care. We no longer look past 60 days. So this is cool. This is the portal. I just want to show you a little bit about how that works. We also have like some cool actions we could take. Like, let's say somebody keeps sending me screenshots. They're like, well, I don't really get paper statements. I can do a digital asset verification. And this sends them a secure link where they can just type in their login info and it'll pull everything we need right over instantly. We can do the same thing with a lot of employers, like if they work for Ford or UPS or FedEx. I'm just thinking of GM, Chrysler. There's 40,000 major employers out there that report to this site we use. And if they're in one of those, they don't have to provide me W-2s or pay stubs. It just gives a quick digital verification and it's over and done. So if somebody completes this link and uploads their docs, I can get them a pre-approval literally same day more often than not. It's very simple to use. And what's cool is I can actually add external contacts down here. I'll just add a new one. And then I've got all these agents in here stored already. I can add a buyer's agent. And then as a buyer's agent, you're going to get live updates of when we submit to underwriting. You're going to get live updates of when the appraisal comes in. You're going to get updates every step of the way. You even have, if you sign up, or I guess create an account when you get this link, you can even pull the pre-approval yourself up to a certain amount and generate your own letter if you needed it on the fly.
Brent, this is really cool. A little intimidating, but we don't
Well,
have
yeah,
to
because
worry
now
about it.
this is
You
the
do.
side that you don't see this.
Yeah. No, but what I mean by that is, let's say we're working with someone who says, this is all a lot. I know I gotta have to put up all this information. I'm not quite ready to do that. And I think it's important for us to, rather than just saying, hey, let me know when you're ready, or let me know if I can send you some, is we really need to drive forward, this. And I don't mean being a sleazy closer. I mean trying to overcome the objection that someone might have of why they're not willing. They want to buy a house. They want to look at houses. They need to be able to do this. And if there's any part of them that's hesitant, you need to maybe recognize that, maybe bring it up and say, hey, listen, Mr. Buyer, I know this seems a little bit overwhelming, and I don't want to make you feel like we're moving too fast. But in order for you to be able to understand what it takes for you to buy the house, Brent and his team need this information to help with the game plan for you, right? So it doesn't mean you get to sit here and work on your credit or what you think you need to do, right? And then talk to them in a month. It's okay to talk with them right now. And Brent's not going to give you this big red stamped letter that says denied. He's going to say, this is what you want to do. This is how we got to get there.
Yeah, I have like my own internal scripting that I use,
Well-
and so I don't necessarily read off of
Yeah.
it, but it's just there's certain phrases and things that I'll say every single time. And one thing to say,
Yeah.
hey, at the
Bill?
end of this conversation, my goal is to either have you fully approved so you can go out and start shopping for a
big
home with
one.
confidence, or we have a game plan to get you there in the next 6 months. Fair enough?
Yeah, I
That usually eases everybody's concerns, and then we move forward. So you don't even have to tell them all the ins and outs of this. Let them know it's easy, put it in front of them, and tell them to just maybe confirm when they've created their account, and then I'll handle it from there. You're just really saying, hey, listen, one way to overcome that hesitancy, Matt, is just say, hey,
Okay.
did
yeah,
you have the
I'll
cash?
visit
Did
it.
you
I
have the
apologize for not
resources to
knowing
pay
that.
for this
I've done
new
so many
home
showings and
cash? If
know,
they
offers,
say
they
no,
kind of run
great,
together, but I'll definitely take a
not a
look at it.
problem. Then this is the first
Ava,
step to get you there.
What city was that in? We've been all over the place. I apologize.
Sorry, guys.
Bill's
I'm-
getting somebody pre-approved right now.
Yes.
Okay.
I've tried
Were you the one
privately
south of the
chatting with
airport?
him, and he's not. Can I kick him
Okay, I
out?
remember that property now. Okay, well, I appreciate the call, Marie. I will definitely revisit that with
I
my
gotta
client.
figure out how the heck to
Take
meet
a look at it,
people.
okay?
Yeah, I don't know why it's not letting us.
Thank you very much for the call.
Well, at least it
Bye.
wasn't long.
Okay.
Very
Hey, Phil.
professional, Phil. With the client, that is.
Hey,
Like,
Phil.
Yes, we enjoyed listening to your phone call, Phil.
Okay. Brent, this is a kind of a new thing that you guys do in this portal and in every instance, and try to improve the systems and stuff. What else is new? What else is on the horizon to try to help people get their clients, a better service, better process, quicker process?
The other thing we're talking a lot about and doing in many instances is we now have two lenders partners that we work with that are doing fully underwritten approvals up front. They'll do they will underwrite the entire file up front and send out a verified letter that specifically says this has already gone through underwriting. So it's like the golden nugget, the next best thing to a cash offer, so to speak. It saves time too, because then you can just submit a purchase agreement. And as long as none of the documents have expired, that thing's going to fly through the system, purchase agreement and appraisal, and we can close that thing in 2 weeks.
So all the lenders that you may hear about there that say, we can close in 2 weeks, we can close in 3 weeks, understand that all the lenders are doing the same amount of thing, right? There's no one who's magically just doesn't have to do certain things. However, if you can do some of it ahead of time, you can speed it up. So if time is of the essence for a buyer, or that's going to be something that's really important to a seller or a listing agent to get your offer accepted, that's pretty cool.
As I can't overestimate this or overemphasize this enough. Getting your client pre-approved is the first sale. If you get them, you've got, because I can't tell you how many times people have told me, even Sharon, the one I was talking about on Monday that got accepted, the $540,000 deal. She's a doctor. She says, I'm getting a promotion where my income's going to double. So I don't know if we need to be starting this yet. I probably won't be doing anything until next year. 3 days later, got her pre-approved. 3 days later, she's got an accepted offer. What people say and what people do are not always going to align. She's saying that because she didn't know what she could afford. She can get any house she wants right now on her salary. It's fine.
And I love that story. And what someone said earlier, you know, Sharon, you were talking about being burnt out with buyers. Brent said we're getting fat with them and we don't want to deal with them. If you're wasting time, if you're taking a lot of time with buyers that are FHA, VA, low down payment, low credit score, low budget, that's fine. But remember the parking lot story. You only have so many parking spaces in your parking lot that you're able to service. If someone's taking up a spot in there that's burning you time, energy, mental energy, everything, you have to fill those parking spots with more clients. So you need to lead generate for more buyers. Maybe it's not more buyers, maybe it's new buyers, right? So instead of the person that I just can't get, I'm not saying give up on them, but go out and find yourself a 20% down buyer that's got money for reserves, right? They're out there. You just have to, if you're not focused on it, you're not going to get it. Just like when you guys focus on listings, you magically find listings.
Yeah, it's, as a salesperson, it can be easy to trick yourself and think, if you were to write your like hottest client list out, who's the hottest, some people make the mistake of the hottest client being the one that's most willing to talk to them. And a lot of times that's your most desperate client, not your hottest.
That's a great point.
I like that. I would also, though, walk away from a lot of the stuff we were talking about today to like maybe reinvigorate some of those buyers who felt like they kept getting like that they are burned out because of the last couple of months, because things are kind of calming down. Go back and revisit them and talk to them about some of these numbers and see if they're willing to Matt's point, you don't want to like take up all your parking spots just to try and talk somebody into wanting to get back out there. But if there's a genuine concern that they had, you know, and they don't have this information because all they're doing is listening to what's on the news, which is delayed news. By the time it ends up on, you know, on TV, it happened a couple months ago. We're the ones who are seeing the stuff that's happening on the front lines today. Go back, talk to some people. You could probably bring some of them back in. All right.
Well, thank you guys. You probably saw my Facebook post yesterday or last night. 2 weeks from yesterday, we're doing a panel. I've got 3 guest agents from different offices that have incredible businesses that are going to be, I'm going to moderate a conversation with them that's going to be really good. It's at 9 o'clock. It's here on the 4th floor. Breakfast will be served, and Silverline Lending is sponsoring it. So really go on right now. If time block that time, reserve your spot with that Eventbrite link. Invite a friend, invite other agents that you know. This is the more the merrier. It's open to all brokerages. I think it's going to be a really good event. I'm excited about it. So thank you, Silverline, for sponsoring that. And
thanks for having me today too.
Thank you for today. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Everybody good?
Yeah. Hey, Matt, can you
All right.
stand for a second?
Sure.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody can stand if they want. It doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
So I did a buyer consultation the other day, and they're really hesitant in signing any of the agreements. And I'm going to set them up on a neighborhood nurture. So I called them on Tuesday in the morning, early afternoon. I sent them the paperwork, and then I followed up like later in the evening just to make sure that, you know, they got it. If they had any questions, I left them a message, and then I didn't call yesterday. So I don't want to bug them, but so I met them at the open house and they came through on Sunday. And they seemed really eager, like even during the buyer's consultation, he was really forthcoming with information, like he's a cash buyer, $600,000, you know, like I thought, oh my God, this is awesome. So I got really excited. And then when it came down to actually like him signing the agreement, he's like, well, I don't think I want to do anything that formal. And I don't know if I'm going to get my wife to, leave the neighborhood because we love it and blah, blah, blah. So then my bubble bursted and now I'm just like, well, crap, so how soon after that conversation do I follow up with him? And is there a difference between setting him up on the neighborhood nurture versus the automated email thingy from the MLS? Like what do I do?
Yes, the neighborhood nurture, just the monthly update of what's going on in the neighborhood through command.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's something that all my people are on. But in terms of new houses, I mean, you did a buyer consultation. Did you get an idea of where you wanted to be and
Yeah, he's
the
looking
types of homes that they're looking at? Okay.
primarily for a condo in Plymouth or
Okay.
Northville. And he
Okay.
actually gave me a list of like condo neighborhoods, I guess, subdivisions that he wanted me
Yeah.
to look in. So
And did you set up that search yet?
I have not.
Okay.
I was going to do that
So
today.
why don't you go ahead and create that, but don't send it to him yet, and maybe follow it up and say, hey, I created this. Looks like there's a couple options, even if there isn't. Looks like there's a couple options. However, the last time we spoke, I was a bit concerned because I was under the impression that you're really gung ho about moving, and then you sounded like you had some apprehensions, or maybe your wife. So I just want to talk about that now that you've had time to kind of digest. What are your thoughts? Like, where's your head at in terms of this? Because I understand moving is a big deal. There's a lot to it. I just want to make sure that you're in, because I want to work with I want to work with you, right? But I also want to work with clients that are motivated, that are want to do this, right? Because I don't want to waste anyone's time, right? That's basically what I would say. So I would continue following up with them, but I would maybe seek to understand, and call a spade a spade. So, I think the best conversations I have with people are when I sense something's off and I address it, because human nature is to just bottle it up or to ignore you. And I think when you just address it, maybe they'll say, no, we just had something personal come up in our lives. Oh, okay. It's not me. It's not this situation, right? It's something else, right? But we can't run to make those assumptions in our mind. We just have to call it out.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I mean, and I don't, because it's my old high school or former high school teacher. So I don't mind, taking them to see a house or two without being under contract, just because I know them and to do it as a courtesy. But I mean, I think he's under the impression, because he did mention that his neighbor's realtor sends him stuff, or sends them stuff, through the MLS, and they go see houses all the time, and it's like, you can't go see houses without a realtor unless you go to an open house, so I don't want to work too hard without them being under contract, but and he seemed, there's no time frame, so they don't have to sell their house before they move. So I mean, I'm willing to go as fast or as slow as they want to go. I want to get them under contract at least for 90 days or whatever.
Sure.
It also makes, we talked about this a bunch. Did they say why? Like, go back to them on their why for moving. Is their house too small? Is there whatever? Like,
they have a multiple, or like a colonial. They're looking for a ranch. First floor master, just everything kind of. They're getting older. And the lawn maintenance is too much for him right now. So now he's just kind of looking for less maintenance and one level.
Well, it's not going to get any easier, I'll tell you that much.
I just don't want to bug the guy, and I don't want to, call him every day, because I mean, I don't know, maybe he's ghosting me because he doesn't want to deal with me, or
you're not bugging someone unless you don't have something to tell them or something to ask them, right? If you do a search but you haven't set up the auto email for them, but you find a search and you say, hey, I was starting this search, I know I didn't even send it to you, but this really great property popped up, I'd love to show it to you. Are you available tomorrow afternoon? Just run. Don't, it's not setting up and saying, let me know if you want to see. It's just you driving it. And if they say, no, we're good. It's like, well, okay. Well, do you want me to email you still? Because, blah, blah, blah. Just ask a lot of questions. Seek to understand. Don't assume anything.
And actually, I have two more quick questions. So is one better, like if I do the auto email from the MLS versus the neighborhood nurture, is one better than the other?
I do neighborhood nurtures for people that are own homes, to let them know what's going on in their neighborhood as a homeowner, right? It goes to them monthly or biweekly just to kind of show them activity. If I have a buyer, they're getting an auto email from the MLS.
Okay. So the neighborhood nurture is for their neighborhood that they're currently living in, not the neighborhood that they're seeking to move to.
That's typically how I use it. Now, if I
Okay.
I'll also set a neighborhood nurture for a neighborhood or an area that someone may want to move into to the future to keep them updated. But the auto email from the internet or from the MLS is really what I go for buyers, because that's just like in real time what's popping up rather
Okay.
than just general sense.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that clarification. And then lastly, so he gave me a bunch of associations, I guess, for lack of a better word, all these different condo
Neighborhoods.
neighborhoods. Can
Yep.
I search on the MLS by that neighborhood?
You can, yeah. In the detail search, there's a field for it's called subdivision. If you
Okay.
click on it, you can search, or you can search in specific houses and it'll say subdivision in the PRD detail. But yes, you can.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Cool. All right. See you guys.
Have a good day. See you
Thanks.
guys tomorrow.